Record. Hi, Tara. How are you?
Hi, good. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really, really happy to be talking to you. I looked you up a little bit online and you are such a fascinating astrologer. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your sun, moon, rising, and your story of how you came to astrology?
Yeah, I feel like I tell my story a lot, but I don't think I've told it to this audience. So, first of all, I'm a Capricorn, a 0 degree Capricorn, sun in the 10th house. So, my work is really important. I'm a Libra moon and a Pisces rising. So, and how I found astrology. So, I actually, I was an elementary school teacher in my life before kids. So, I have a lot of training. In that realm of children and working with the parents. And then when I was pregnant, so I have 3 children, I'm a mom and an astrologer, two of the most, important things that I do. But when I was pregnant, my son was 3.5, and I gave birth to his sister, Eva. And at that point, I was a natural parenting educator. Like, I helped other moms with nursing, and my daughter was born. It was a beautiful pregnancy and birth. She was born and she couldn't nurse, and she really basically wouldn't stop crying. Like the world was hard for her. And I wanted to just kind of give birth and go home. That was my plan. And she just she wouldn't nurse. And so that was like the first clue that something isn't right. And I think it was like 6 weeks of the first 6 weeks were so hard for her because she just cried all the time. I didn't know at the time she was hungry. She just wasn't getting enough milk because the muscles weren't developed in her face. Fast forward, and we realized that she's was not on a typical path. Like there were situations neurologically that were going on with her. And I mean, for the first 5 years of her life, my goal, remember, I'm a Capricorn sun in the 10th house, that became my full-time job. My son became very independent because he had to, because I was consumed with just fixing her. And I tried everything alternative. I tried everything mainstream. And at the time, my son was at a Waldorf school, which is Waldorf education is under the umbrella of anthroposophy, which, by the way, I bring into my practice. I bring in Rudolf Steiner's work. Um, and I knew that Eva was a soul, and I knew she chose her path. I still wanted her normal, and I wanted her life and my life easier. Our families, she was consuming our family's needs. And so I wanted to move to a place where she could get a Waldorf education, because Waldorf is very, really big on honoring the incarnating soul. And the whole Waldorf education is helping that soul incarnate in an appropriate way down here on planet Earth. And I found a special needs school, a Waldorf school for special needs children. So at this point, she was in that category of very not typical. She didn't walk until she was like 4.5. Her diagnosis now is cerebral palsy, and that's the official Earth diagnosis. Yet I know she's just a soul. I know she chose this way of living. I said yes as her mom. I do believe as the children choose their parents. Um, so we moved to this Waldorf School for Special Needs Children, and someone said to me, wow, you've tried everything. Like you name it, you've done it all. I've done all the biomedicals and all the things. Some of the things people thought were absolutely crazy, but I was going to do them. They said, have you ever had her natal chart read? And so she's 19 now. That was like 2010. She was 5. And I said, what's that? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, the map of the sky and her star chart. In Waldorf, they call it star chart. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I know I'm a Capricorn. She's a Pisces. My son's a Virgo. Like, what else is there to know? Well, then I had her chart read, and he blew me away. He never met her. He described her sensitivity. He described her different presentation, like all the things fit. And I also have Mars, Venus, and Jupiter in Scorpio in the 8th house. So I became obsessed with figuring out, how did he know this? Because what that reading really brought me was peace. And that's definitely not something that I was living the first 5 years of her life. It was that was the last thing that I was embodying was peace. I was like way off my path too. And so this astrologer did a reading for her, and I was just, my mind was blown. And then he also did a reading for me. And I was like, who are you talking about? Like that used to be me, but that's not really me anymore. And so I realized that like this is what can happen when you have a child that chooses a different path. There are many children coming to the earth right now who are not fitting in the box. And and those parents are trying everything they can, and kind of they lose themselves. I really lost myself in just that whole experience. I mean, I'm still her mom, but there's a lot of acceptance. The energy that I put into my work to support other parents also helps me to support me in my parenting. We always pick the thing that we need for us, so it helps me every day. And so Eva was my gateway into astrology. And then, I just wanted to do it for other parents. And I learned locally. I studied with, two astrologers because there were no online classes back then. And then there were two astrologers that came to me around the same time, Stephen, of course, and then Deborah Silverman. I teach for Deborah right now in her school, in her astrology school. But those two, like Deborah was the very practical, simple, let's keep it, my Mercury, how I think is in Capricorn. I needed things simple. And Stephen just brought in the evolutionary astrology, the soul approach, which I so needed. And I use that in every reading. Like this Eva has the perfect chart for her. I just, I just need to understand it. And if something makes sense, my body can relax. Like, I was just in fight or flight. My amygdala was like going crazy with like, how do I fix her? How do I fix her? Oh my God, I try this. Okay, I'll do it all, and then I was burning myself out. But when that astrology reading helped me make sense of her in this incarnation, and my body was able to come down, and I was able to really tune in, like, what is she needing? I mean, she really just needs a lot of holding. She has a ton of Pisces in her chart. But so yeah, that really changed my life and changed the trajectory of my life, really. That was a long answer. I could say lots more about that.
Wow, I was fascinated the entire time. Your story and this journey for your own peace, and then the acceptance of Eva, and then how that shapes your journey is such a powerful story. And I love what you said. My favorite thing about Steve also is everybody has the perfect chart. There are no imperfect charts, and there are no dysfunctional charts. And it's one of my favorite things about him.
Yeah.
What has this year you're speaking at Astro-Bash, and you already teach a lot online. I saw that you're really active on Instagram. What made you want to come and speak at a conference with Stephen Forrest?
Um, well, first of all, I was considering going myself just because I love him, and I love just the way he looks at the world, the way he looks at a chart. So, I do teach a lot for myself. That's really the main thing I do. I also have an astrology community where I talk with them every day and kind of hold them through each moon cycle. And yeah, I give them a little daily It's really what I do on Instagram, which was on Instagram, I just tell you what's happening with the moon because our kids are so connected to the moon, right? We all know that the moon has a big influence on the waters of our planet. Well, we are mostly water. I'm sure you know that. But then our kids are even more water. And they are, from a Rudolf Steiner's point of view, like they are in their moony years when they're young. And so after, no surprise that there was a lot of stress in my family when we were raising Eva. And so ultimately her dad and I, he's a great person, but we ended up going different ways. And um, and Eva was particular. She needed you can imagine sun, moon, Venus, and Pisces. She needs a holding that's like this. And so I could give that to her. He's a Sagittarius, so he's just more spontaneous, and she just was kind of struggling with the divorce and all over the place. So I had her a lot, and I was just drowning again in her needs, but now I was by myself. So before I would get out of bed every day, I'd be like, oh my God, one more day. I can do this. I can do another day. It's a brand new day. Where's the moon? okay, the moon is in Sagittarius. So how can I keep, because, our kids are just so connected. I also had at that point a 3-year-old and, a 15-year-old at that point. So I was just like, what is everybody's mood going to be? How can I nurture them today? What are they in the mood for? And then I would just post about it on Instagram, and I would write it by hand because I love handwritten things because I used to be an elementary school teacher before I had kids. And people were like, oh my God, like this is so helpful. And then I just took that and I made it into like a bigger offering for my community. So I am very attentive to my community, but I really teach. That's my main thing I do. And I just wanted to be able to have a wider audience. So I definitely said, like, when I was asked if wanted to go to Astro-Bash, like, oh yeah, I'm going to make that work. It's my daughter's birthday the first day, but I'm going to attend, like, I'll go the second day and be there for the rest of the time. But yeah, I think it's so important, especially like with first of all, everyone is loving astrology these days. Like, it's when I started out, it used to be parents would be like, oh my God, I'd never want my kids' chart read. I don't want to know what's going to happen to them. I just want to live my life. And I'm like, oh no, I don't do that kind of astrology. I just help you see your kid for who they are and not through the lens, of your own karma and your own wounding and the ways that you weren't held when you were young. Eva, being her mom, I learned a lot about the brain and nervous system. So that all gets brought in. There's a lawnmower outside my window. That all gets brought into my astrology, along with my whole other bag of tricks. But, if we can just parent in a way with the chart in mind, with the young developing nervous system in mind, and our nervous system that was formed when we were young, like, you throw those things all together, you have a lot of information and tools to work with. Long answer again. So
I appreciate the depth of thought you bring to all this stuff and the years of experience. When did you actually start studying with Stephen and with Deborah, and how did that journey proceed for you?
yeah, it was around the same time. It was like right after, I, their dad and I separated, 2016. 2016. Before that point, I was studying with an astrologer who was trained by Liz Green, which is a great, but it wasn't landing. I learned a ton. And I also, I mean, I have an air moon. The way that I feel good is by reading. I have, like, tons of astrology books, but it's like almost like my hobby to collect them. I'm a little bit of a nerd. So I learned a lot from reading too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think being in person with people in this time when so much of our lives are online would benefit people?
Well, first of all, we all need community, right? Yeah, we need community. And what better way to be in community than with astrology geeks like ourselves? Like, we just geek out on this stuff. We love it. We know how important it is. Astrology is the lens that we see our world with, And so, yeah, coming and being with your people, I feel like is even more important now than it was before 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. What is the most profound or surprising feedback you've received from a client after a consultation?
Um, that's a good question. What is the most surprising? I mean, in general, parents leave. I do a lot of readings for moms about their kids. The kid isn't there. It's really through this lens of attachment. Like, I'm using a lot of attachment theory, attachment parenting, because, those first 7 years are so critical. They're very moony in nature. And um, like, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, parents, like, my my the focus of my reading is helping them just understand the child's bigger soul lesson plan. And because they're young, they're all potential. And what they like, how can I help them understand right now, especially like how to meet their needs? And how that child's needs, because this is where like a lot of parents will like, some parents just want to know all about their kids so they can be a better mom. Others are like, I'm having a hard time, help me. And all of the situations that come to me leave with a, oh, it's all fine. Like it all makes sense. And I love to have that as a, like when things make sense, our body can come down. And like when a child makes sense to a parent, because, you know, maybe they just had their natal chart read and the parent can calm down, the child feels that because they need a suit, they learn how to regulate their own nervous system by the nervous systems that were around them when they were growing up. So the biggest gift you can give your child is to have a regulated nervous system. That's doing so much for them. That's teaching them way more than say please and thank you and those things, you know. And so if I can help the parents understand their kid, but also understand that usually, you know, it's like 99% of the time when they come with an issue, like my kid like is just like unmotivated, like he doesn't want to do anything, or my kid won't listen, or oh my God, my child's so sensitive. That actually isn't about the child. It's really the child showing the parent a part of themselves that's not yet been like integrated back into their own psyche. So if we can just, if they can see it that way, like, oh, it's actually not about them. I'm just that part of that they're showing me wasn't allowed when I was growing up. So it's very freeing and very empowering. And like, oh, I don't have to change them. In fact, that's the last thing I want to do is like change them. Like, because here's their, I usually have a chart. Here's their soul curriculum. I just have to, you know, XYZ, or this is the most important thing for me to focus on. So they leave really empowered and like everything is okay. I don't know if that answered the question, but that was what
No,
came to.
I did. I feel like it does. And I think there's something really beautiful about having an interaction with a parent where it doesn't have to be huge fireworks, but it's like, oh, I've landed within myself. I've found my center, my peace, and that it's okay. And that I can take on the next day and the next day, just like what you were saying when you were a parent. Like, okay, today's a new day. I can, you know, and having that gift of recognizing our own traumas and separating them from that of what the child is, and instead of projecting them on the child. What a beautiful gift to give to parents. I think that's beautiful. I want to share with our audience the slide you've prepared of how to get in touch with you. If you'd like to tell us how to get in touch with you, or how somebody wants to work with you, a mom or somebody else, how would they
Yeah.
find you?
Um, well, I show up on Instagram every day at Luminary Parenting. And I also have a community. We open the doors a few times a year. And I teach, you know, my midheaven, Sagittarius is on my midheaven. So it rules my 10th house. So I love to teach. You know, I was a teacher before I had kids. Um, so I do teach. What I'm going to share in the Astro-Bash, you know, in that session is like the best parts from my 8-week course. You know, it's like 16 hours, 2 hours each week, of called Illuminating Children's Natal Charts. Like that's for astrologers that want to understand children's charts. But what they find is at the end of that class, they also understand the underpinnings of adults' charts. Like you're able to see the child in the adult, because guess what? That child is still in there. They're just have a job now and they have bills to pay, but the child is still there. I love to work with the moon. So, you know, I teach progressive moon wisdom. I co-teach that with my very best friend, Malika. And yeah, and I also have something called Parenting Astrology Academy, where you learn how to reparent yourself. And we work a lot with the nervous system. And I also bring in internal family systems, method of psychotherapy, because, you know, it's some people call it parts work, but you know, you all know the planets are just parts of us. So I was trained in that, and also polyvagal theory, which is really tangibly and somatically working with our nervous system. So I bring that into Parenting Astrology Academy. But yeah, so, and I also do readings. It's like a small part of what I do, but I do have one day a week open where I still do readings.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah. Thank you. That's
you're welcome.
fantastic, Tara. One last thing before I let you go is I like to do a little bit of rapid fire questions with
My Mercury's in an earth sign. I'm like the worst with rapid fire questions. You could try, but I guarantee I'm going to be like, Saturn is making a beautiful aspect to that Mercury. Saturn's in Taurus, like, oh, you got to think about that one. But go ahead and try. I'll do my best.
Okay, well, what's your favorite aspect in your own chart?
Okay, I really, let's see, if I just had to say what that was, I do really love that Saturn is in an earth sign, is trining my Mercury in an earth sign, because I think that when I get feedback from my teaching, which is something that I really love to do, it's like I finally get it. I understand it, because why that is because when I have to learn something, I need it broken down step by step, and I need to repeat myself and like do all that. Like I was an elementary school teacher. It's almost like what I used to do for my students, second grade, third grade, I do for my astrology students, and they're like, thank you. Now I finally get it, because it's a little abstract. So I do love Mercury trining Saturn.
That's awesome. And okay, if your moon took over the world, what would be the first thing it would change or do?
My moon,
Mm-hmm.
my moon would bring world peace, because I'm a Libra moon, and I don't like all the polarity and the opposition. I just want us to like come together and like see us all as, I'm also a Pisces rising. So, it's just like we all are one, and can we cohabitate down here on the earth without taking sides and destroying ourselves? So yeah, peace.
Beautiful. And if you could have a conversation with any astrologer, any historical astrologer, who would it be and why?
Um, Yeah, I'm fascinated by Robert Hand. Like when I've gone to see him in person, I feel like a groupie. One time I was at a conference, and he did I think it was called chart, uh, difficult charts or something like that. And he was taking the audience, people in the audience, and putting their chart up and giving them mini readings. And like he would say, okay, who's next? And I swear to God, I was like on my chair, like jumping, like, pick me, please pick me. I think I have the hardest chart in the world. And I didn't get picked. But like I would love for him to look at my chart. I just was amazed. Like everything that he's not doing readings anymore, but or at least if he is, I don't know how to get a hold of him. But yeah, he's just somebody that's like never had eyes on my chart, but I would love for him to. That's what I would ask him, like, read my chart, because we all love our chart. We all are fascinated by our own soul's journey. So
Indeed. Indeed. Well, Tara, thank you so much for your time and for sharing it with us and for the amazing work you seem to be doing in the world. I can't wait to meet you at Astro-Bash. What's
oh,
one thing you're most excited about being at Astro-Bash?
I mean, being with everyone in person. There are people that have worked for me for years that I have not actually met in person, but they're coming. They're like, oh my God, we're so there. So two people on my team, some people from my community are going, like none of them I've met in person. So, and I mean, I've been in Stephen's presence before, but it's such an honor to be, I'm a fangirl of him too. Like he also I didn't get picked out of the audience for any of his things that I've been in, his sessions. I've seen him at conferences, taking a lot from him online. But yeah, I was in all of his sessions when he would go to conferences. Um, yeah, so just like being with everyone, it's a really rare opportunity. I want another UAC, like the Universal Astrology Conference, but I don't think they're doing that anymore. And then all the other ones don't work. And I'm like, I'm dying to be with my astrology people. So yeah, just to be with everyone and connect, like feel everyone. I'm a Pisces rising. I want to really feel. So I'm here to feel.
I'm looking forward to feeling with you, Tara. So thank you again so much for being here and for sharing your insights with us. I can't wait to meet you.
Welcome, me too.